Hello. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Kelly. I am a mother, a sister, an auntie, a daughter, and a friend. I am also an employee teaching in a school in the Northern Territory, catering for students with multiple disabilities and or intellectual impairments. I know very well about the inclusive education debate and the social justice issues in which separate education of special education students are unequal. However, my story today is not that of a segregation due to disability, but a segregation due to race. And when I say segregation, I mean self-segregation. Today I'm going to talk to you about my sister, Dee. Dee is 14 years old and 100% Indigenous Australian. She's not my biological sister. I am European Australian. However, she has been in my family since she was born. She is the foster daughter of my parents. Therefore, she is my foster sister. I would never let Dee hear that word foster, however, as it gives her a label. And according to Graham and Slee, labelling points out a difference, and Dee already has several differences to deal with. In her childhood years, Dee was always happy. She had lots of friends of mixed races, was always laughing, dancing, and loved being the centre of attention. She participated in school plays, street parades, and she doted on and was very proud to be seen with her mum and dad, my parents. Just recently, my mum and dad went away on a well-deserved break, and Dee came to stay with me, as she does, to ensure she didn't miss out on valuable time away from school. She had just finished a course of antibiotics due to a contagion in her nails. She had bitten them down so far it had caused an infection under her skin. I assume this nail biting to be caused by a social anxiety disorder, which Asnay, Agerka and Hoffman refer to as the negative evaluation or embarrassment in social situations. Now, Dee has had a wealthy upbringing. She's always got what she wants, be it a new iPhone, nice shoes, or the latest craze, earpods. She goes to a private school and has recently travelled to several different countries with my parents at the young age of 13. She is what I would call privileged. I've never seen or heard of any other Indigenous Australian of her age travel parts of this world, and I know for a fact Dee would have never have had this opportunity to travel had it not been for the invisible white privileged successes of my parents. Now Dee knows this. She has mentioned it to me several times. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Mum and Dad, would I, Kelly? I am one of the lucky ones, she adds. Dee's biological parents are no longer around. They left Dee's hometown several years ago, and whilst she visits them maybe twice a year, she doesn't enjoy it much. She claims they are dirty and they don't have the internet. What she does like, however, is the cultural aspect of these visits. Did you know my spirit animal is an owl? She asked me one day. As Dee doesn't have regular contact with her family, she has a very minimal connection to culture. And Keddy claims if Indigenous Australians lose or don't have a connection to culture, it results in an assimilated Indigenous Australian. That is, confusion surrounding one's identity and their piecing together of their heritage to their country. Now, Dee has a really busy social life. She attends a youth program approximately 6 days a week, where young teens have opportunities to engage with others, play sports, have access to ICT, and participate in cooking experiences. This youth program caters for children who are of mixed races. However, from what Dee has told me, 100% of the teenagers that attend are Indigenous Australians. I don't know why this is. I love going to youth. It's the only place I can be myself, she claims. She no longer engages with white friends. When I questioned her of this, she answered, "It's just easier to talk to my people being those of the same race." Even in the home environment, Dee is rarely seen. She spends the majority of her time confined to her room, chatting with friends on the phone. Whether this is just her being an average teenager or if it is for other underlying reasons, I do not know. In public, she refuses to be seen with myself or my parents, waiting in the car whilst we make quick dashes into the shops. When I asked her why she does this, she answered, "If my friends see me with a white family, they won't want to be my friends anymore." If she desperately needs new clothes, she will make that trip into the shops, but she does so with extreme anxiety, evident with compulsive nail biting, head down, and a look of distress. She does this for fear of being seen by her friends or being accused of stealing by local security who guard the premises. Stealing is something she would never do. However, due to the negative stereotyping of Indigenous Australians, Dee assumes it is something she will be suspected of. She's mentioned to me stories where she has been introduced to new people of her kind. However, she fears talking in front of these people, as she claims when they hear me speak, they will know I've been raised by a white family and they won't want to be my friend. In her school environment, Dee is placed into a bridging class. Now, this class is segregated from the mainstream class and is for low achievers. Most of the students in this class are Indigenous Australian, and Dee sees this as a racial issue. Why are all the bridging students Aboriginal? She questions. My school is racist, she adds. Now, Holmes claims segregation in the classroom generates a feeling of inferiority with long-lasting effects never to be undone. Whatever happened to inclusion? McAvoy states, in a heterogeneous classroom where low achievers are paired with high achievers, there are noticeable effects, including an increase in self-concept and a reduction of anxiety. Would it not be more beneficial having Dee placed in a mainstream class? My father disclosed to me just last week that he had asked Dee, when she was 4, whether she wanted to go back and live with her family or whether she wanted to stay with them. She chose to stay with my parents. Mum and Dad made a promise they would always be there for her, which they are, but I wonder if maybe sometimes they question their decision, not for the academic aspects of Dee's life, however, the cultural side. Don't get me wrong, my parents loved Dee unconditionally and have given her the absolute very best for her to grow to the greatest of her ability. She's just as deserving as any other child to be given unlimited opportunities to have the best life. I was, and I know Dee will forever be very thankful. However, unbeknownst to my parents, and up until recently myself, Dee is facing confusion surrounding her attempts to find and positively define her Indigenous individuality within a white society. Would things be different if her family had remained close? We will never know. Self-segregation due to a fear of others' opinions of her standards of living as a white Australian is having a detrimental effect on the ability to define her identity. Now, according to Child Protection Australia, in 2016 there were 491 Indigenous children in foster care in the Northern Territory. I imagine this number to now be more significant. I can guarantee you Dee is one of many dealing with the struggle she faces today. She's not subjected to just one aspect of social injustice, however several, including discrimination and racism for which she is self-segregating. Dee is showing signs of physical and emotional trauma, not for how she's been raised, but because of the views of the dominant society. The reality is, had Dee been left with her parents to raise her, I assume she would possibly face other forms of trauma. What is the solution? Some say it starts in education. Cole and Verwain mention research demonstrates that children's awareness of racial differences starts at the young age of 4. Del Pitt claims teachers must teach and learn with children about these critical and complex issues. But how do we as teachers do this? A lot of students don't comprehend racial issues. Well, depending on how they engaged in conversation around race can make all the difference. According to Zemblis and McGlynn, a pedagogy of discomfort can be intentionally adopted to enhance the learning experience of students who struggle to understand social injustices. For those non-teachers out there, what this means is that by discomforting emotions, we can challenge dominant beliefs and normative practices that contain social inequities. It is the aim of creating possibilities for individual social transformation, changing how one thinks, or in this case, unlearning rigid rules for labelling and placing others. Now, to do this, students need to be taken out of their comfort zone. Zemblis and McGlynn mention if a major purpose of teaching is to unsettle taken for granted views and emotions, then some discomfort is not only unavoidable, but necessary. This form of pedagogy, or teaching in simple terms, questions the deeply embedded emotional dimensions that frame and shape daily habits. Now, an experience whereby this pedagogy of discomfort is in practice is in Jane Elliott's Blue-Eyed, Brown-Eyed exercise. For those of you who don't know, this project taught students about prejudice and discrimination through intensely discomforting emotional experiences. Yes, this brought some tears. Does this seem fair though? Is it right to have our students taken so far out of their comfort zones to the point where they are emotionally disturbed the correct way to teach? Feldman thinks so. She claims if teaching does not hit upon some sort of crisis and encounter the vulnerability of the explosiveness of an unpredictable dimension, it is perhaps not truly taught. I agree with this statement. I agree that a pedagogy of discomfort is necessary to offer students new windows with new views of the world. It deconstructs how they have learnt to see, feel, and act. Now be honest, for all the parents out there, how many of you have used this pedagogy of discomfort when teaching your children to view things differently? Did you ever hear your child call others names? Did you call them names back and question how does it make you feel? This is what a pedagogy of discomfort does. It takes students away from their comfort zones, allowing them to identify unconscious privileges and how they comply with a dominant ideology. It may seem cruel, but research shows it works. Are there repercussions for this type of teaching? Some argue that yes, there is. Rack raises questions about whether creating discomforting emotions is an ethical way to teach. Kumar Shiro states, with this form of teaching, not all students will respond, that some may adopt an anti-oppressive attitude. For others, they may experience distress. However, it is unethical to leave students, children, in such harmful repetition. It needs to stop, and it needs to stop now, or Australia's social injustice issues are going to continue to spiral and innocent children like Dee will continue to fall a victim. Thank you.